The grand ballroom of the Thompson estate was a dazzling spectacle of opulence. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, casting a warm glow over the elegantly dressed guests who mingled, their laughter and chatter filling the air. The rich aroma of gourmet delicacies wafted through the room, while exquisite floral arrangements adorned every corner, creating an atmosphere that felt both festive and surreal. It was a night meant to celebrate, and yet, for Sarah Thompson, the evening was laced with an unsettling pressure that she couldn't shake off. As she stood near the edge of the dance floor, her emerald gown swirling around her like a living thing, Sarah's heart raced. She watched as her fiancé, Mark Stevens, a tall man with dark hair and an easy smile, moved through the crowd, effortlessly engaging with their guests. He was charming and handsome, and the two families had been intertwined for generations, their legacies as intertwined as their fortunes. But as Sarah watched him, a knot of anxiety tightened in her stomach. The proposal, which had seemed like a fairy tale moment, now felt like a gilded cage. "Sarah, dear, come here," her mother, Eleanor Thompson, called, waving her hand with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Eleanor was the epitome of grace and refinement, her own gown a masterpiece of silk and lace. Yet beneath her polished exterior lay an unyielding expectation that weighed heavily on Sarah's shoulders. As Sarah approached her mother, she forced a smile. "Yes, Mother, Mark is about to make his toast. I want you to stand beside him," Eleanor instructed, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Of course," Sarah replied, though her voice was barely above a whisper. She felt as though she were on display, a prized possession to be showcased rather than a woman with her own desires and dreams. The clinking of glasses drew her attention back to Mark, who had gathered the guests' attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice strong and confident. "Tonight is not just a celebration of our families, but of the love that unites us." He gestured towards Sarah, and she felt the weight of hundreds of eyes upon her. "I am honored to ask for your support as I take this next step in my life. Sarah, will you marry me?" If you're enjoying this video and want to see more content like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and activate the bell. That way, you won't miss any of our updates. Your support helps us bring you the best content possible. Continuing, the room erupted into applause, and Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. Mark stepped forward, kneeling to present her with a stunning diamond ring that sparkled like a star. The moment was beautiful and grand, yet all she felt was a suffocating mix of joy and dread. She managed to nod, her voice caught in her throat. "Yes, of course." As Mark slipped the ring onto her finger, the crowd cheered, and Eleanor beamed with pride. Yet, in that moment, Sarah felt a part of her soul cry out for freedom. She was stepping into a future that had been meticulously planned by her family, one that left no room for her own desires. Later, after the toast had concluded and the guests began to disperse into smaller groups, Sarah found a moment of respite in the quiet library, a sanctuary adorned with leather-bound books and rich mahogany furniture. She leaned against the wall, closing her eyes, trying to gather her thoughts. "Are you all right, Sarah?" Mia, her best friend since childhood, appeared at the doorway, concern etched on her face. Mia was dressed in a simple yet elegant gown, her hair in loose waves, and there was a refreshing simplicity about her that Sarah envied. "I don't know, Mia," Sarah admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It all feels overwhelming. I thought I would be excited, but instead, I feel trapped." Mia stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. "You don't have to go through this alone. You can talk to me." Sarah sank into a plush armchair, her fingers nervously twisting the ring on her finger. "I love Mark, I do, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm being pulled into a life that isn't mine. All these expectations, I don't even know if this is what I truly want." Mia knelt beside her, placing a comforting hand on her knee. "What do you want, Sarah? What would make you truly happy?" "I want to understand the world beyond this mansion," Sarah confessed, her voice gaining strength. "I want to see how other people live, to experience life without the weight of my family's expectations. I feel like a bird in a gilded cage, and I need to break free, even if just for a little while." Mia's brow furrowed in thought. But how do you plan to do that? You have your engagement coming up, and your family will want to start planning the wedding soon. I don't know yet, Sarah sighed, her heart heavy with uncertainty. But I've been thinking, what if I disguised myself as a maid, just for a short time? I could take a job at a local hotel and see what life is like for others. Mia's eyes widened in shock. You want to pretend to be a maid? That's quite the leap. I know it sounds crazy, Sarah replied, a hint of laughter escaping her lips despite her anxiety. But I need to understand what it means to live without privilege. I want to meet people who don't share my last name or my wealth. I want to find out who I am outside of this life. Mia contemplated this for a moment, then nodded slowly. If it's what you truly want, I'll support you. But how will you pull it off? Your family would notice if you disappeared. I'll find a way, Sarah said, determination sparking in her eyes. I just need to be brave enough to take the first step. As the night wore on, the festivities continued, but Sarah felt a sense of resolve growing within her. She would escape the clutches of her suffocating world, even if just temporarily. She would don a disguise, immerse herself in a life that was foreign to her, and discover the truth about herself and the man she was about to marry. The following day, Sarah set her plan into motion. With Mia's help, she gathered a simple yet functional outfit, one that would allow her to blend in with the hotel staff. As she stood before the mirror, she felt a mixture of excitement and fear coursing through her veins. The reflection looking back at her was someone new, someone ready to embrace the unknown. As she stepped out of the Thompson estate for what felt like the first time in ages, Sarah felt a rush of adrenaline. The sun was bright, and the air was fresh, filled with the sounds of the city bustling around her. This was it, the beginning of her adventure. She was ready to step into the world outside her privileged bubble and discover the realities that lay beyond her sheltered life. Sarah Thompson, now disguised as Lily, had settled into her new life at the hotel, where the hustle and bustle of daily operations felt like a new heartbeat in her once sheltered existence. The air was filled with the sounds of clattering dishes, the soft hum of conversations, and the occasional laughter echoing from the guest lounge. Each day brought a new lesson, and with every shift, she felt herself inching closer to the truth about the world outside her gilded cage. One particularly busy afternoon, as Sarah was folding fresh linens in the staff room, she was joined by Jake, the bellboy, who had quickly become her confidant. He was a tall, lanky young man with tousled brown hair and an easy smile that could brighten the dreariest of days. Today, he leaned against the door frame, watching her with a mix of amusement and curiosity. "Hey, Lily," he said, his voice warm and inviting. "You know, you could fold those sheets a little faster if you used both hands." Sarah looked up, rolling her eyes playfully. "And miss out on the chance to savor the quiet? I think not, Jake. Besides, I'm getting the hang of it." Jake chuckled, pushing himself off the frame and stepping into the room. "You're a natural, I'll give you that. But you do know we've got a rush coming in, right? The Stevens are checking in soon." The mention of the Stevens family sent a jolt of anxiety through Sarah. She had managed to avoid any direct encounters with Mark since she started working at the hotel, and the thought of seeing him while she was in disguise made her stomach churn. She took a deep breath, trying to mask her apprehension. "Oh, really? I hadn't heard. I guess I should prepare myself for the influx of rich guests." Jake noticed the change in her demeanor and leaned closer, concern etched across his features. "You all right? You look a bit pale." "I'm fine, just, the thought of all those rich people," she replied, forcing a smile. "It's a bit overwhelming." "Hey," Jake said gently, "they're just people, They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like us." He grinned, trying to lighten the mood. "Well, at least I hope they do. Can you imagine if they just jumped into them?" Sarah burst into laughter, her initial worries momentarily forgotten. "Now that's an image I won't be able to shake anytime soon." As they continued to chat, Sarah shared snippets of her life, careful to keep her stories vague and relatable. "I grew up in a small town," she told him, "where everyone knew each other, felt like everyone had each other's backs. Sometimes I miss that simplicity." "Sounds nice," Jake replied, tilting his head. I grew up in a similar place, though it was a bit rougher. My family didn't have much, but we always found ways to make fun out of nothing. We'd go camping in the backyard and call it an adventure." His eyes sparkled as he spoke, and Sarah found herself hanging on every word. "That sounds amazing. I can't imagine doing something like that. My family was always too busy with social events to even think about camping." "Well, you've got to make time for fun," Jake said, grinning. "Maybe we should have a backyard camping trip here at the hotel. Just us staff, of course. It could be a blast." "I'd love that," Sarah said, her heart swelling with warmth. "It sounds like a dream." They continued to share stories, weaving a tapestry of their lives, each thread colored with laughter and the occasional sigh of nostalgia. In those moments, Sarah felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. For the first time, she was not just the heiress expected to marry a man of status. She was simply Lily, a girl with dreams and fears like anyone else. As the evening approached, the hotel buzzed with anticipation for the Stevens' arrival. Sarah felt a knot tighten in her stomach as she busied herself with final preparations. She could hear the laughter and chatter of the guests filtering through the walls, an unmistakable sign that the family had arrived. Just then, the door swung open, and in walked Mark, flanked by his parents, Evelyn and Charles. "Lily, can you take their bags to room 305? Her supervisor called out, oblivious to the whirlwind of emotions that surged within her. With a nod, Sarah stepped forward, her heart racing. Mark looked just as handsome as she remembered, his charming smile lighting up the room. But it was the conversation that followed that left her feeling disoriented. "Did you see the new staff?" Mark asked his parents, glancing around. "I heard they've hired a bunch of new people. I wonder if any of them are worth talking to." Evelyn scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. "If you ask me, they're just hired help. I wouldn't waste my time on them. You're better off mingling with the right people, Mark. You know that." Sarah's heart sank as she overheard the contempt in Evelyn's words. It was a stark reminder of the world she was navigating. She had come to understand the struggles of those around her, the weight of their lives, and here was Mark's family, dismissing them as if they were invisible. As she approached with their bags, Mark turned to her, his smile genuine. "Hey there, Lily. Could you help us settle in?" "Of course, Mr. Stevens," she replied, forcing herself to maintain a professional demeanor. "Just Mark, please," he said, a hint of warmth in his voice. "I'll be around for the weekend. Maybe we'll see you at the staff party later." Sarah nodded, trying to ignore the fluttering in her chest. "I'll be there." As she turned to leave, she overheard Evelyn whispering to Charles, her tone dripping with condescension. "Honestly, I don't understand why we have to stay in this place. It's filled with lower-class workers. Can't Mark find better accommodations?" The word stung like a slap. Sarah clenched her fists, feeling a mixture of anger and sadness. How could someone so close to Mark harbor such disdain for the very people who made their lives comfortable? Later, as she folded towels in the laundry room, Sarah's mind raced. She thought of Jake's stories, of the camaraderie they shared, and the understanding that blossomed between them. Could Mark really be so oblivious to his family's prejudices? Or was he simply a product of his environment? That night, as she lay in her small room, Sarah couldn't shake the heaviness in her heart. She had wanted to learn about the lives of those less fortunate, but now she felt trapped in a world of contradictions. Mark was kind, and there was a part of her that wanted to believe he was different from his family. Yet, she couldn't ignore the truths she had overheard. The next day, Sarah decided to confront her feelings head-on. She sought out Jake, finding him in the staff lounge, where he was busy polishing silverware. "Hey, you got a minute?" she asked, her voice low. "Always for you, Lily," he replied, glancing up with a smile. "What's on your mind?" "I overheard some things yesterday," she began, her heart racing. "About Mark's family. It's disheartening." Jake nodded, setting down the silverware and giving her his full attention. "I get it. They can be pretty harsh. But don't let that color your view of Mark. He's not like them." "I want to believe that," Sarah admitted, her voice catching. But how can I when I hear his mother speak like that? It's as if she thinks we're all beneath her. People like that tend to be blind to their own privilege, Jake said softly. But you're not just a maid, Lily. You're so much more. Don't let their words define you. His words resonated deeply within her, igniting a spark of resolve. She needed to understand where she stood, not just in relation to Mark, but in relation to herself. She had come to learn about others, but now it was time to confront her own truth and decide what kind of future she wanted for herself. "Thank you, Jake," she said, her voice steadier now. "I really appreciate you being here for me. You've helped me see things in a new light." "Anytime," he replied, offering a reassuring smile. "Just remember, you're not alone in this." As Sarah prepared to face the weekend with the Stevens, she felt a new sense of determination. She would navigate this world of wealth and privilege, but she would do it on her own terms, armed with the knowledge and empathy she had gained during her time as Lily. And no matter what happened, she would not allow herself to be silenced or diminished by those who felt entitled to look down on others. As Sarah continued her life as Lily at the hotel, she found herself increasingly immersed in the daily routines and camaraderie of the staff. Each day brought new challenges, yet there was an undeniable thrill in embracing this new identity. The once oppressive weight of her privileged life began to lift, replaced by the exhilarating freedom of anonymity. One rainy afternoon, as she wiped down tables in the hotel restaurant, she caught sight of Jake, the bellboy, chatting with a couple of guests. His laughter rang out like music, rich and infectious. She paused, leaning against the counter, her heart fluttering as she watched him. Jake had quickly become a friend, a confidant, and perhaps something more. He was everything her fiancé Mark was not: genuine, humble, and refreshingly honest. "Hey, Lily," Jake called out, catching her gaze. "Come over here. You won't believe what this couple just told me." Curiosity piqued. Sarah wiped her hands on her apron and joined him. The couple, a middle-aged man and woman, were animatedly recounting their travels across Europe. With every word, Jake's eyes sparkled, and Sarah felt a warmth envelop her as they included her in the conversation. "Did you hear about the hidden cafe in Paris?" the woman asked, her voice bubbling with excitement. "It's tucked away in an alley, and they serve the best croissants in the city." "That sounds incredible," Sarah responded, her voice light. "I've always dreamed of visiting Paris." "You need to go," Jake chimed in, his enthusiasm infectious. "It's absolutely worth it. Just promise me you won't go with anyone who doesn't appreciate the adventure." "All right." Sarah's heart raced at his words. "I promise," she replied softly, locking eyes with him. In that moment, the world around them faded, and it was just the two of them, sharing a dream that felt tantalizingly close and impossibly distant at the same time. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah's bond with Jake deepened. They shared late-night conversations over cups of coffee in the staff break room, where secrets flowed as freely as laughter. She told him about her life as Sarah Thompson, about the suffocating expectations of her family, and the impending marriage to Mark. "Sometimes, I feel like I'm living in a gilded cage," she confessed one evening, her voice barely above a whisper. "Every day is a performance, and I'm terrified of what will happen when the curtain falls." Jake regarded her with a mix of sympathy and understanding. "You're brave for wanting to break free, Lily. Not everyone would dare to step outside their comfort zone like you have." "Do you think I'm being foolish?" she asked, her brow furrowed. "No," he replied firmly, leaning closer. "You're discovering who you truly are. That's something to be proud of. Just remember, whatever you decide, you have the right to choose your own path." His words resonated with her, echoing in her mind as she navigated the complexities of her dual life. Yet, as the engagement party approached, an uneasy tension began to brew. Mark's mother, Evelyn, had become increasingly suspicious of Lily. The piercing glances she shot Sarah during their brief encounters, coupled with whispered conversations with other hotel staff, set Sarah on edge. One evening, while organizing linens in the hotel's storage room, Sarah overheard Evelyn speaking to the hotel manager. The door was slightly ajar, and she couldn't help but eavesdrop. "Keep an eye on that maid," Evelyn instructed, her tone icy. "There's something off about her. I want to know where she came from and what she's really doing here." The manager nodded, clearly intimidated by her presence. "Of course, Mrs. Stevens. I'll make sure to look into it." A chill ran down Sarah's spine. She couldn't help but feel that Evelyn's suspicions were rooted in a desire to protect her family's status. The woman was relentless, and Sarah knew that her cover was in jeopardy. "Lily, you okay?" Jake's voice broke through her thoughts as he entered the storage room, a concerned look on his face. "Yeah, I'm fine," she replied, forcing a smile, but her heart raced. Should she confide in Jake about Evelyn's suspicions? Would it place him in danger as well? He stepped closer, studying her face. "You don't look fine. You look worried. What's going on?" Taking a deep breath, Sarah decided to reveal the truth. "It's Evelyn. She's suspicious of me. I overheard her talking about wanting to investigate my background." Jake's expression hardened. "That's not good. We need to figure out a way to throw her off your trail." "I don't want to drag you into this," Sarah said, biting her lip. "You could lose your job." Jake shook his head, determination etched on his face. "You're my friend, Lily. I won't stand by while she tries to ruin your life. We'll come up with a plan." Just then, a voice called from the other side of the door, and Sarah's heart sank. It was Evelyn, her sharp tone cutting through the air. "Lily, are you in there? I need you to help with something." Panic coursed through Sarah's veins as she and Jake exchanged frantic glances. "Quick, hide!" she hissed, pushing him behind a stack of linen. She straightened her apron and opened the door, forcing a smile onto her face. "Yes, Mrs. Stevens? How can I help you?" Evelyn's gaze swept over the room, her eyes narrowing as they landed on Sarah. "I need you to assist with setting up for the engagement party. There's no time for dilly-dallying. We must impress our guests." "Of course, I'll get right to it," Sarah replied, her heart pounding in her chest. As she turned to leave, she shot Jake a quick, worried look over her shoulder. He remained hidden, a silent ally in the growing storm. As Sarah worked through the evening, Evelyn's words lingered in her mind. The engagement party was approaching fast, and she found herself at a crossroads. She could feel the walls closing in, and the weight of her secret pressed heavily on her shoulders. In the days that followed, the tension only escalated. As Sarah continued to assist with the party preparations, the atmosphere became charged with anticipation. Mark's family was determined to showcase their wealth and status, and Sarah felt like an imposter in the midst of it all. One afternoon, as she arranged floral centerpieces in the grand ballroom, she overheard Evelyn conversing with Mark. "Darling, I'm so glad we're finally hosting this engagement party. It will be the talk of the town." Her voice was bright, but there was an underlying edge to it. "Yeah, I can't wait," Mark replied, his voice full of excitement. "It's going to be amazing. Just remember, Sarah comes from a different world," Evelyn continued, her tone shifting slightly. "We must ensure she understands the importance of our family's reputation." A knot twisted in Sarah's stomach. Would Mark truly believe that she needed to conform to their expectations? Would he see her as a burden rather than an equal? As the days dwindled down and the engagement party loomed closer, Sarah realized that she could no longer hide the truth from Mark. The thought of facing him and unveiling her true identity filled her with dread, but the prospect of continuing the charade felt increasingly unbearable. Late one night, as she lay in her small room at the hotel, Sarah's mind raced. She could no longer deny the growing feelings she had for Jake, nor could she ignore the painful reality that awaited her if she didn't come clean. The next morning, after a restless night, Sarah made her decision. She needed to tell Mark everything before the engagement party spiraled out of control. As she prepared for the day, her heart pounded in her chest. Would he understand? Would he still love her when he learned the truth about her disguise? With resolve, she stepped out of her room and headed towards the lobby, ready to confront her destiny. As the grand engagement party unfolded at the Stevens lavish estate, Sarah Thompson, disguised as the maid Lily, felt a whirlwind of emotions as she carried trays of hors d'oeuvres through the opulent ballroom. The crystal chandeliers sparkled above, casting a warm glow over the elegantly dressed guests, each one more extravagant than the last. Laughter and music filled the air, but Sarah's heart raced not from excitement but from the weight of her secret. She watched from the sidelines as her fiancé, Mark Stevens, mingled effortlessly with his family and friends. His smile, radiant and genuine, made her heart ache. In her disguise, she had grown to appreciate not just Mark but the life he represented, the one she had always been told to aspire to. Yet, standing there, she felt like a ghost, invisible to those who surrounded her. "Lily, over here," an exuberant voice called, snapping her from her reverie. It was Mia, her best friend, who had come as a guest. Mia's vibrant red dress contrasted sharply with Sarah's plain Maid uniform. She waved her hand excitedly, beckoning Sarah over. "Just a moment," Sarah replied, forcing a smile as she walked toward her friend, balancing the tray delicately. "What are you doing here? I wouldn't miss this for the world. You're really pulling it off, aren't you? It's like a scene from a movie," Mia teased, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "It's surreal, really. I feel like I'm living in a dream or a nightmare," Sarah confessed, glancing at Mark, who was laughing at something one of his friends had said. "I don't know if I can go through with this." Mia's expression softened. "Sarah, you're doing this for a reason. You need to know if Mark is the man you think he is. Just remember, you're stronger than this disguise. You'll figure it out." With a determined nod, Sarah turned back to her duties, her heart heavy with the knowledge that she was deceiving not only Mark but also herself. She moved through the crowd, weaving between clusters of guests, her mind racing with thoughts of confrontation. Was it time to reveal her true identity? Would it shatter their relationship or bring them closer? As the evening progressed, the atmosphere grew lively, filled with toasts and laughter. Sarah found herself serving drinks to the guests, listening in on conversations that made her stomach churn. The comments about the help were casual but cutting, revealing a world that she had only just begun to comprehend. "Can you believe they hired someone from, well, you know that place?" A woman whispered to her friend, her tone dripping with disdain. "Honestly, it's embarrassing. We should be careful about who we associate with. It's all about appearances," another replied, her voice laced with judgment. The remarks stung Sarah deeply, solidifying her discomfort with the very world she was poised to join. She glanced over to see Mark, standing with his mother, Evelyn, who appeared to be the epicenter of the judgment. The way she held herself, with an air of superiority, made Sarah's stomach twist. "Lily," Evelyn's voice cut through the noise, sharp and commanding. "Come here at once." Sarah's heart dropped. She approached, forcing herself to maintain her composure. "Yes, ma'am. Make sure the champagne is refilled at table 5. They're running low," Evelyn ordered, her gaze dismissive. "And don't let anyone see you loitering. You know how these events can get." "Of course, ma'am," Sarah responded, biting her tongue against the urge to retort. She turned on her heel, feeling the weight of Evelyn's scrutiny on her back. As she walked away, her mind raced. She felt trapped in a gilded cage. The laughter of the guests echoed around her, but it felt hollow, devoid of sincerity. Mark's laughter, however, pierced through her turmoil. It was a sound she cherished, a sound that made her question everything she had learned about love and class. Her thoughts spiraled into confusion as she overheard a conversation between two of Mark's friends, their laughter punctuated by jabs at the working class. "Can you believe that some people think they deserve to be treated equally? It's ludicrous," one of them scoffed. "Right? They should know their place," the other replied, chuckling. "I mean, you can't expect a woman from the other side of town to fit in with our family." The words hit Sarah like a slap in the face. She tightened her grip on the tray, feeling the heat rise to her cheeks. They were talking about her, about the life she had chosen to explore. Her resolve hardened. She couldn't marry into a family that held such disdain for others. After what felt like an eternity, Sarah found herself in the kitchen, the cool air a welcome relief from the heated atmosphere of the party. She leaned against the counter, taking a deep breath. "Is everything all right?" Jake, the bellboy, asked as he entered, his brow furrowed with concern. Not really, she admitted, allowing herself a moment of vulnerability. I overheard some conversations. It just makes me question everything. People can be cruel, especially when they think they're better than others, Jake replied, his voice steady. But you have to remember, Sarah, Lily, you're not like them. You're kind. You've got heart. That's worth more than their money or status. Thanks, Jake, she said, appreciating his support. I don't know if I can keep pretending. Feels wrong. Then don't, he said softly, stepping closer. You deserve to be with someone who sees you for who you really are, not just as an extension of their wealth. His words resonated with her, igniting a flicker of courage within. She needed to confront the truth, both for herself and for Mark. But just as she was about to voice her thoughts, the clamor of the party echoed through the kitchen, pulling her back to reality. Evelyn's voice rose above the rest, cutting through the laughter. You there, you need to be more efficient. This is a celebration, not a circus. Sarah turned sharply, her heart racing. She couldn't just stand by anymore. She had to know the truth about Mark's family, about what she was joining. As she stepped back into the fray of the party, her heart pounded in her chest. She searched for Mark, her mind racing with the weight of her decision. She had to confront him, to reveal her truth before everything spiraled too far out of control. But before she could reach him, she caught sight of Evelyn once more, her sharp gaze scanning the room, landing on another employee. A young woman struggling to carry a heavy tray. Useless. Can't anyone do anything right? Evelyn sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. The sight of it made Sarah's blood boil. She watched as the girl's face fell, humiliation washing over her. In that moment, all doubt faded. Sarah knew what she had to do. She couldn't marry into a family that treated people like this. Mark, she called out, her voice clear and firm, cutting through the laughter and chatter. He turned, surprise flickering across his features. Lily? What is it? He asked, concern etched in his eyes. But before she could utter a single word, Evelyn's voice rang out again, harsh and unyielding. You're embarrassing yourself, Lily. Get back to work. The tension hung thick in the air, and Sarah felt every eye in the room turn toward her. She hesitated for a moment, the weight of her identity pressing down on her. But as she looked into Mark's eyes, a mixture of confusion and concern, she felt a surge of determination. The truth was within her grasp. She just needed to find the strength to grasp it. The tension in the air was palpable as Sarah gathered her resolve, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and indignation. She had witnessed enough of Evelyn's disdain for the staff, enough to know that the time for silence had passed. The lavish hotel lobby, adorned with regal decorations, suddenly felt suffocating, each golden detail a reminder of the world she was about to challenge. As she approached Evelyn, who stood with her arms crossed, exuding an air of superiority, Sarah felt a rush of determination. Excuse me, Mrs. Stevens, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. Evelyn turned, her brow furrowing at the sight of Sarah in her maid's uniform. What is it, Lily? Make it quick. I have more important matters to attend to. Actually, what I have to say is quite important, Sarah replied, taking a step closer. I don't think it's right how you treat the staff here. They work hard, and they deserve respect. Evelyn's laugh was sharp and condescending. Respect? From a mere maid? How quaint. You should know your place. After all, you're merely a pawn in this establishment, not a player. Sarah's cheeks flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment, but she pushed through the discomfort. I am not just a maid. I am a person, just like you, and I deserve to be treated as such. This attitude you have, it's toxic, and it reflects poorly on your family. Evelyn's smile vanished, replaced by a look of fury. How dare you speak to me like that? You're lucky to even be in my presence. Don't forget who you are. A servant, not an equal. At that moment, Mark entered the lobby, his casual demeanor shifting to concern as he spotted the heated exchange. Mother, what's going on? He asked, striding toward them. "Just a little chat with your maid." "Mark," Evelyn replied, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "She seems to think she can lecture me on manners." Mark's expression hardened as he turned to Sarah, confusion clouding his features. "Lily, is that true? Why would you confront my mother like this?" Sarah began, but the words caught in her throat. She felt vulnerable under Mark's gaze, the weight of her disguise pressing down on her as she fought to maintain her composure. "I believe everyone deserves respect, Mark, and your mother doesn't seem to understand that." Mark's eyes flickered between his mother and Sarah, caught in a web of familial loyalty and burgeoning love. "Mother, you can't treat people this way. It's not right," Evelyn scoffed, her voice icy. "And you think a maid has the right to demand anything from me? This is ridiculous. I will not have you defend her." "I'm not defending anyone, Mother," Mark snapped, frustration boiling over. "I'm simply saying that we should treat people with decency, regardless of their position. It's basic human respect." "Don't be naive, Mark," Evelyn retorted. "This is how the world works. You cannot let emotions cloud your judgment. Remember who you are and what you stand to inherit." With that, Sarah felt the walls closing in around her. It was one thing to hear Evelyn's disdain directed at others, but now it felt personal. She could feel the tears threatening to spill, but she steadied herself, unwilling to show weakness. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "but I can't work here under these conditions. I'll be leaving." Mark's eyes widened, the realization of her words striking him like a blow. "Lily, wait. Don't go. We can talk about this." But Sarah shook her head, her heart heavy. "No, Mark. I can't be a part of this world. Not while your mother holds those views. I thought I could understand you better, but I see now that I was wrong." As she turned to leave, Jake appeared from the side, his expression one of concern. "Lily, is everything okay?" he asked, his voice low and soothing. "Not really," Sarah replied, her throat tightening. "I need to go." Mark stepped forward, desperation in his voice. "Please, just let me explain. I want to understand why you're upset. Care about you." "Do you, Mark?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "Or do you care more about your family's approval?" "Don't do this," he pleaded, his eyes searching hers for some sign of hope. "You mean so much to me." But Sarah felt the chasm between them widening. "I can't be with someone who doesn't stand up against their family's prejudice. I have to be true to myself, even if it means walking away." As she brushed past Jake, a sense of loss washed over her. She could feel Mark's eyes on her back, filled with confusion and hurt. "Lily," he called out, but she didn't turn around. Instead, she slipped out of the hotel, the cool air hitting her like a wave of reality. Outside, she leaned against the wall, her chest heaving as she tried to catch her breath. Jake was there beside her, his presence steady and comforting. "You did the right thing," he said gently. "You deserve to be treated with respect, not just by others, but by yourself." "I thought I could change things," Sarah whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I thought I could find a way to connect with Mark, to show him who I really am. But his family, they're so entrenched in their beliefs. Sometimes, the hardest thing is to walk away," Jake replied softly. "But it's better than losing yourself trying to fit into a world that doesn't accept you." Sarah nodded, grateful for his support. "I just wish things were different. I wanted to be with him, to be part of his life, but I can't compromise my values." "Then don't," Jake encouraged. "Be true to yourself. You're stronger than you think." Meanwhile, back inside the hotel, Mark stood frozen in place, his heart pounding as he processed the confrontation. He felt torn, caught between the woman he was beginning to love and the family he had always known. How could he reconcile the two? As he glanced toward the exit, determination surged within him. "I need to find her," he said decisively, his voice a mix of urgency and resolve. "I can't let her go without understanding what just happened." With that, he rushed out of the hotel, his mind racing as he searched for Sarah. He had to know why she had left, why she had felt the need to confront his mother. As he stepped into the cool evening air, He scanned the surroundings, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. "Where are you, Lily?" he murmured, his heart aching with the possibility of losing her. He had to find a way to prove to her that his feelings were genuine, that he was willing to stand against his family for her. As he walked down the street, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was a turning point in his life, a moment that would define his future. He had to decide whether to prioritize his family's expectations or to follow his heart, wherever it might lead him. The choice seemed clear, but would it be enough to win Sarah back? The morning sun filtered through the grand windows of the Thompson estate, casting a soft glow on the elegant furnishings. Sarah Thompson sat at her ornate vanity, her heart racing as she opened the letter from Mark. As she read his words, a mixture of hope and anxiety washed over her. Mark's heartfelt expression of love and his request to meet at the hotel stirred a whirlwind of emotions within her. He wanted to understand the real her. Would he accept her truth? With a deep breath, Sarah rose from her chair and gazed at her reflection. The woman staring back seemed both familiar and foreign. The luxurious attire of the heiress was a stark contrast to the simple maid's uniform she had worn as Lily, but that life had felt more authentic, more vibrant. She longed for the freedom she had tasted, but could she truly bridge the gap between her two worlds? As she made her way to the hotel, memories flooded back. The laughter shared with the staff, the warmth of Jake's friendship, and the stark reality of life outside her privileged bubble all played in her mind like a film reel. The hotel had become a sanctuary for her, a place where she could escape her suffocating reality. But now she was returning, not as a maid, but as herself, ready to confront the truth. Upon arriving at the hotel, Sarah felt a wave of nostalgia wash over her. The familiar sense of polished wood and freshly laundered linens enveloped her, but the air was thick with anticipation. She took a moment to steady herself before entering the lobby, where she spotted Mark waiting near the reception desk. His handsome figure stood out against the backdrop of the bustling hotel, his brow slightly furrowed as he scanned the crowd. "Sarah," he exclaimed, his voice a mixture of relief and surprise as their eyes locked. He rushed toward her, his expression softening. "You came." "I had to," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I received your letter." Mark took a step closer, his gaze searching hers. "I've been thinking about everything. I need to understand. Everything about you." Sarah felt a flutter of nerves in her stomach. "Mark, there's something you need to know. Something important." Before she could continue, the tension in the air shifted, and with a swift, sharp tone, Evelyn Stevens entered the lobby, her presence commanding immediate attention. "Mark, there you are," she said, her eyes narrowing as they landed on Sarah. "What are you doing here?" "Mother," Mark replied, his voice tinged with irritation. "I'm talking to Sarah." "Talking? With that girl?" Evelyn scoffed, her disdain palpable. "You need to forget her, Mark. She's not part of our world." "Evelyn, please," Mark said, his patience wearing thin. "You don't understand." "No, you don't understand," Evelyn snapped. "She's a distraction, a mistake. You have a future to think about, a future that doesn't include her." "Mother, it's my choice," Mark insisted, his voice rising. "I want to know Sarah. I want to understand her." Evelyn's eyes glinted with fury. "You're being foolish, Mark. You have no idea who she really is. You're blinded by infatuation." Sarah's heart raced, and she felt a wave of determination wash over her. "That's not true, Evelyn. I'm not just some distraction. I've worked here, I've seen what your family truly values, and it's not love. It's status and wealth." The words spilled from her mouth before she could stop them, but they felt liberating. Evelyn's composure faltered for a moment, her surprise evident. "You dare speak to me like that? Do you think you know my family?" "I know enough," Sarah replied, her voice steady. "Enough to realize that your family's wealth is built on manipulation and deceit. I've seen how you treat the staff, how you dismiss them as if they're beneath you." Mark's eyes widened, torn between his mother's fierce protectiveness and Sarah's courageous honesty. "What do you mean, Sarah?" he asked, glancing between the two women. Evelyn scoffed. "This is absurd. You're being influenced by a commoner. She has no right to speak about our family. Commoner? Sarah echoed, her heart pounding. You think that's all I am? I'm not ashamed of who I am or where I come from, but I refuse to be part of a family that values wealth over people. Evelyn's face flushed with anger. You're nothing but a maid pretending to be something you're not. Enough! Mark shouted, his voice echoing through the grand lobby. The room fell silent as everyone turned to stare. I've heard enough, Mother. Sarah deserves respect. She's shown me what it means to be real, to connect with people. You've taught me to value status, but she's taught me to value love, compassion, and honesty. Evelyn's expression hardened. You're making a grave mistake, Mark. She'll ruin you. I'd rather be ruined with her than have everything I've ever known, Mark declared, his voice unwavering. I love Sarah, and I won't let you tear us apart. The tension hung thick in the air, and for a moment, it felt as if time stood still. Sarah's heart swelled with hope at Mark's declaration, but Evelyn's fury was palpable. You think this is love? Evelyn sneered. You're a fool, Mark. You don't know what love is. It's a business arrangement. It's power. It's influence. You think this girl can give you that? I don't want your business arrangements, Mother, Mark replied, his eyes blazing. I want a life filled with genuine connections, with someone who understands me. Sarah stepped forward, her heart racing. Mark, please. I need to tell you everything. I've been hiding my identity, yes, but not for the reasons you think. I wanted to understand the world outside my own, and I wanted to know you for who you really are, not just as your family's future bride. Mark's eyes softened as he took her hand. You're brave, Sarah. I admire that. But you don't have to hide from me. Evelyn's face twisted in rage. You think you can just waltz in here and destroy my family's reputation? You're delusional. No, I'm exposing the truth, Sarah said, her voice steady. Your family's wealth is built on unethical practices, and it's time the world knows. The way you treat others, the way you manipulate people for your gain. Evelyn interrupted, her voice rising. You have no proof. You're just a maid with a wild imagination. I have more than enough proof, Sarah countered, her gaze unwavering. I've seen the contracts, the backroom deals. Your family's empire is built on the suffering of others, and I won't stand by while you continue to exploit people. Mark's expression shifted from confusion to realization as he processed Sarah's words. Is that true, Mother? Have you been hiding this from me? Evelyn's composure cracked, revealing her desperation. Mark, listen to me. We can fix this. We can do better. No, Mark replied, stepping back and shaking his head. It's too late for that. You've lost my trust and you've lost my respect. I choose Sarah. With those final words, a silence enveloped the hotel lobby. Sarah felt a rush of relief, knowing that Mark stood by her side, ready to face the storm. Evelyn's face twisted in disbelief, her world crumbling around her. The truth had been revealed, and in that moment, Sarah understood the power of love and authenticity. Together, she and Mark would face whatever challenges lay ahead, united against the forces that sought to tear them apart. As Evelyn stormed away, defeated, Sarah felt a sense of peace wash over her. I'm so proud of you, Mark said softly, squeezing her hand. You're incredible, and I want to support you in every way. With a smile, Sarah replied, and I want to support you too, Mark. Together, we can build a life that values love over wealth, compassion over status. As they stood in the bustling hotel lobby, surrounded by the chaos of the world, they knew that their journey was just beginning. Together, they would face the future, hand in hand, ready to embrace the love that transcended all barriers. If you like the content, don't forget to leave a like, a comment, and share it with your friends. Your comment is essential for the growth of the channel. And look at this video that appears on the screen. See you soon.